So that my big take-home was, rather than me learning, oh, this is what abuse is, this is not normal, what I learned was, I'm not treating people like that. I never want people that work for me or with me or I'm in a relation with to feel like this. So I learned the complete opposite. So I learned how to lead from the heart and to treat people from the heart with kindness and trust and respect. And that's the other part of my book then, how I flipped. I took all this and rather than becoming an abuser myself, I did the opposite and learned to lead from the heart.
Welcome to Future Fit Leadership, a podcast for leaders at every stage who want to stay relevant in a world that keeps changing. Leadership has shifted. The pace is faster, the expectations are higher, and the future is calling for a different kind of leader. One who is human-centered, grounded, and able to balance capability with empathy. These conversations bring together global perspectives on the skills and mindsets that help people and organizations thrive. Hello and welcome to Future Fit Leadership. I hope wherever you are listening to this podcast, you are well. Imagine walking into work and feeling your body react before your mind has caught up. Your chest tightens, your energy drops, and something in you says, this isn't right, even if you can't quite explain why. In the conversation today, I sit down with Jane Phipps, who shares a deeply personal story of workplace bullying and the toll it takes over time. Jane has spent more than 20 years across education, government, and the not-for-profit sector. But what she shares here is not just a career story, it's a human one. She takes us into a moment where the pressure became overwhelming, where simply walking into the office triggered such an intense fear response that her body gave way beneath her. And what makes this conversation so important is it is not rare. We talk about the silence that often surrounds bullying, the shame that comes with it, the way people start to question themselves, stay longer than they should, and try to cope in environments that are slowly wearing them down. But this is not just about what goes wrong. Jane shares how she began to recognize the patterns, how she learned to speak about it, how she rebuilt her approach to leadership. Her perspective is grounded in a simple idea: that leadership can be kinder, more aware, and more human. We also explore the small behaviours leaders often overlook, the moments that either build trust or quietly break it, and the responsibility leaders hold when it comes to creating environments where people feel safe to show up fully. This is a conversation about courage, the kind that asks you to face what is uncomfortable and choose a very different way forward. If you have ever questioned a workplace dynamic or wondered what good leadership looks like in practice, this conversation with Jane Phipps will resonate. Hello, Jane. Welcome to Future Fit Leadership. Lovely to have you with us. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you, Sadhna, for having me here. It's lovely to be able to speak on my favourite topics again.
You've spent more than 20 years working across education, government, and the not-for-profit sector, and now you're doing a whole range of other things. Before we get into talking about your favourite things, tell us about what you're doing at the moment.
Well, I've actually gone back to work, which is really nice, but I spend some of my other time still writing. I'm still writing about my book and about my topics in my book, and I write a few articles, and I am a featured writer on something called the Star Network in America. It's survivors of toxic abusive relationships, and they have a not-for-profit over there, and I'm the featured workplace writer on there. So I spend my time writing articles, and I still mentor people. People ring me up for advice and just to have a chat. And I do a lot of LinkedIn posts. And one of the best things that's happened to me lately since I've written this book is people actually say thank you. They don't necessarily comment on LinkedIn, but a lot of people saying thank you. Thank you for bringing the topic up and talking about these topics so that it gives us a space to talk about it, and how much they enjoy just reading my articles and my post. And it's actually quite a sense of joy. It really is. It's very humbling at the same time as, oh, that's really nice. Yeah.
Tell us about your book.
My book is The Heart-Centered Leader, and it's a semi-autobiographical leadership book. So it's in two veins. I start writing about my history and about my childhood because I was brought up by a narcissistic father, and I was bullied at home and at school. And then I do going into the workplace where I didn't know what it looked like not to be in an abusive situation because I'd grown up in that environment. So then I started uh, feeling it from male dominated. I went into the defence industry straight out of uni, and I did a maths degree. So I was surrounded by men at university, and then I went into defence as a mathematician, surrounded by men, and all I knew was my father and my father's style. And then I started realizing the older I got and more in these environments I've worked in, this is actually toxic workplaces. This is toxic abuse. And it probably took me well into my 40s to really click what I knew and what I didn't know.
Because
Yeah.
you talk about and you write about how, you have a strong belief that the best leaders are the ones who lead with heart, and you base it on your experiences.
Absolutely. So what I learned from all that abuse and that toxic abusive workplaces and relationships was I never wanted to treat people like that. So that my big take home was, rather than me learning, oh, this is what abuse is, this is not normal, what I learned was I'm not treating people like that. I never want people that work for me or with me or I'm in a relation with to feel like this. So I learned the complete opposite. So I learned how to lead from the heart and to treat people from the heart with kindness and trust and respect. And that's the other part of my book then, how I flipped. I took all this, and rather than becoming an abuser myself, I did the opposite and learned to lead from the heart.
Can you take us back to a moment in your career where you realized that, because of the environments that you were in and the experiences that you were having, that you were no longer coping, but probably only just surviving?
I can tell you the exact moment something changed, and I do write about this. I was in a fairly senior position in the organisation I worked for, and my boss went on leave. He went on leave for about a month, and I was left in charge. And everything was fine. I thought everything was fine. I did the job. I did well. And then he came back. And the day he came back and I walked into the office and I saw him and I knew it was going to come at me that I'd actually been okay at his job while he was away. And I actually realized then the fear that I worked in. And I literally collapsed. I actually went to the floor and at the minute I saw him, and that's kind of when my brain shifted. Like, this really isn't normal. And people came to help me, and my best friend took me to my GP, and I actually never went back into that workplace. But that was a very dramatic way of finally learning this is not normal.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, right? Because toxic workplaces do exist, and they exist in various forms of behavior. And it could be, bullying, it could be the way that you are treated, it could be emotional, it could be physical. Like it's a whole range of ways that toxic workplaces play out. What I find is that in most of the time, people have a coping mechanism. And so they come into work and they find a way to cope with that environment. But at some point in time, everything completely breaks down, which is what's happened to you. What happened post that? Like, how did you come back into the workplace? How did you decide or draw a line in the ground for yourself to say that if this ever happened again, or if I am exposed to something like this again, this is how I'm going to cope with it? So your tolerance levels for something like that was completely reduced.
What I learned from that first experience, because it did happen to me again, I'm clearly a slow learner. It did happen to me again. But what I did learn from that first experience was to talk, because along with bullying comes shame. And shame is often the hidden side of bullying that we don't talk about. The fact that you're in a workplace and you're being bullied, well, what's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? You're playing into the bullying. You're playing into what you're being told. So that the shame is quite strong and lonely. And I think the first time it happened to me, I might have bitched and moaned about my boss, as
We all do.
fine, like we do.
Yep.
But I never really talked about it. And I learned from then, you need to talk about it outside of work. Go and find a girlfriend outside of work and just say, this is what's happening. And that's when I learnt what's normal and what's not normal, what other people experienced. And I think talking to a close friend, it was really, really different. I also got therapy. I also started doing physical exercises. There's a lot of things you can do for self-care, but I think that was a game changer for me when I broke through the shame and the loneliness and almost said, hey, I've got to confess something's been happening to me.
How did you get the second time go, why am I doing this to myself again?
I did say, why am I doing this again? But I learned quickly to talk. Like I had a therapist almost right from the word go. So I was talking to a therapist and I was talking to my best mates right from the word go. But I stayed in that role because it was serving my career, or so I thought. And also, as a single income person with a mortgage, I had to go, well, I need to keep doing this until I get another role that I can move to, because I've got to maintain my income. And I just didn't get one quick enough.
You talk about when you are in that toxic environment, your body reacts faster than your mind catches up.
Yeah.
I find that intriguing. Talk to me more about that.
In nearly every instance where I've been bullied, I tend to put weight on. And I almost don't see it until I go, oh, I'm not a doctor, I don't know. But to me, it's a defense mechanism that your body is putting weight on. I get dizzy spells. That's now one of my first indicators. If I get a dizzy spell, I go, hang on a minute, what's going on with your nervous system? I'm now listening to myself. The weak point of my body is my sinuses. So I tended to get, in that first instance where I told you my sinuses were so bad, I was having antibiotic injections because of the sinus infections, and I still didn't listen to my body. So I think the weakest points of your body start to show. That's what I've noticed. And I do listen.
Did you ever have a conversation with those leaders or organisations about the impact they had on you?
No, I've never gone back. And you'll notice I'm not mentioning
Any names? No, of
any
course
name.
not.
I've never gone back. I've actually talked to them in the room as they're not here and had a conversation, got some stuff off my chest that I wanted to say, but I've never done it face to face. No.
When you talk about survival mode versus heart mode and how leaders can recognize when they're operating in survival mode, what is that like? If I was a leader and I was leading in survival mode, but didn't have the self-awareness to recognize that, what are some of the signs that I should be looking out for?
I think one of the biggest signs is fear. As a leader, if you have someone working for you or someone you're working with, and you suddenly go, oh, I don't trust that. What's going on there? And fear response comes in and you feel you need to control the situation, then you're not in your heart. You're in fear mode, you're in control mode, you're in survival mode. And that's not belittling those people that do that, because sometimes the environment that we work in creates that. But it's a good thing to be self-aware of. Like, is that me? Is it the environment? Is this person actually a threat? Like, is this person who works for me actually doing the wrong thing? What's my role in this? And I mean, that's quite a cognitive load to be doing that. But it's not when you get used to it.
Yeah.
If you live in your heart and you're not
Yeah.
used to it, like my first response now is, what's going on here? This is a two-way interaction. What's going on here? Yeah, and what's my role? Yeah.
We talk a lot about psychological safety in workplaces. It is beyond a buzzword, because I think at some point it was a bit of a buzzword, but now, we legally have to make sure that we have psychological safe workplaces. From your experience, how do you know when psychological safety is genuinely present in an organisation or a team?
I feel physically safe and mentally safe and emotionally safe in a psychologically safe environment. There's a lot of safe in that sentence. But if I can go into a meeting at any level and say, I actually disagree and I'd like to bring up another point, if I feel comfortable enough to be able to say that and people are respectful enough to listen, and it doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong, I'm just allowed to have an opinion, that's a psychologically safe environment to me. If I can go into an environment and say, hey, I think there's a different way to do this. Do you mind if I have a go at it? And they go for it. And it fails or succeeds, but either way it's celebrated. To me, that's a safe environment. I feel emotionally safe and intellectually safe enough to bring myself to work and go, I want to play here. All for the power of good. I think we can do this better. I think there's a way we can challenge this. But I've been in environments where when I've gone to, well, I have said, I think there's a better way, or in my experience, I've seen it done like this, and it's shut down so fast that the next time you go into a meeting, you just sit there and don't say anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not psychologically safe.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the small invisible behaviors that leaders underestimate that can actually destroy safety very, very quickly?
That's a really good question. I think destroy safety in my mind, how I like to create safety, is the human factor. If you walk into the room, make sure you say good morning to people. Say hello to people. It doesn't do you any harm to say hey, even if it's hey everyone, how you going? And walk into a room. Be human, show your vulnerability, show that you're a human, that you're a person. But I think the lack of that creates almost a fear. It's almost an enigma. A leader walks into a room or walks through a room and they don't look at people and they don't acknowledge people. It creates that, they're unapproachable. I can't talk to them. I have an issue. I can't talk to them about it. I think it's just some simple things. Stopping to say, oh, I know your mum had an operation last week. How's it going? You know, is she all right? Just simple. Be human.
Yeah, be human. Be a good human.
Just be human.
I had one of my guests not that long ago that I interviewed use those exact same words. Just be a good human, you know, and a good human is a range of behaviors that genuinely shows that you care about the people who work with you. And that doesn't mean you never have the hard conversations, but you have the hard conversations with care.
And you can have the hard conversations because you've built that rapport and you've shown some care. So if you have to say to someone, hey, we have to have a chat, just, you know, let's go for a coffee, they're not coming from it from a place of fear.
Yeah.
It's a respectful conversation.
What I find interesting is a lot of leaders were never, like, we never get taught emotional literacy. Like most of us have become leaders because we've worked our way up the, you know, climbed the corporate ladder. We grew up in environments or learned in environments that were toxic, you know, and where it wasn't emotionally or psychologically safe. So how can leaders build a capability like emotional literacy without feeling inadequate or exposed?
That's a really good question. Let me counter it with another question or another thought, if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
Why aren't we picking people with those qualities to become leaders? Why do we pick people without those qualities to become leaders and then expect them to change who they are?
That's a good question. Is it because we're picking people who are just like us in organizations? So there's already an underlying environment of poor behavior. So, you know, we think it's okay. So we pick another person that's just like us. Or do we genuinely think that it doesn't matter or the person will change?
I think there's an element to both, but I also think, I don't know that leadership is considered a technical skill like everything else. That person's really good at sales, for example. The best salesperson, smashing all the metrics, let's put them in charge of the team. Now, that person smashed all the metrics because they really loved and were really good at what they did. Do they want to go in charge of the team? Do they have the skills to go in charge of the team? So we often promote people on their ability for their technical skill. Might be the perfect team lead, might be able to teach everyone exactly their technique, and it brings the whole team together. But let's challenge that thought.
Emotional intelligence actually does change the way a leader delivers feedback or makes unpopular decisions, doesn't it really?
Yeah, I think so. I think emotional intelligence to me allows you to be that human, show kindness, show respect, show care, and be able to read the room. If I had to have a hard conversation with someone and I walked in and went, they're not okay, something's gone on today, I'm going to park this till tomorrow. That's emotional intelligence to me. You still need to have the hard conversation, but you're doing it in an environment of care and understanding. And I think people that lack emotional intelligence can't read that. Can't read the room, can't read the body language, can't read the signs on the face, and would just go in anyway.
So, Jane, if I was interviewing someone to lead my organization or take on a, senior executive role, like
Yeah.
there isn't a piece of paper that we say, oh, I've gone to university and I've learned all about emotional intelligence and I can tick that box. Thank you. I've got that skill set. Yet it is a critical skill set that we need in leadership,
Yeah.
right? So how do I test for it? And if it is lacking and I still want to bring them into the organization, how do I train on it?
Well, the first thing I do to look for it is not in the interview, it's in the small talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, thank you for being here. Did you get here on the tram today? Or, is Zoom working okay? Whatever the small talk is at the beginning,
Mm,
the interview started. The interview started the way you interacted when you booked your meeting and, when you answered the phone call to book the meeting, to book the interview. That's how I look for EQ, because then you get into technical answers.
mm,
But all that small talk at the beginning is really whether they smile. I mean, they still might be nervous, but do they smile? Are they confident enough to ask a question back? Like, yeah, I caught the tram. How do you find the tram this morning? It was really busy. Or to me, I'm reading EQ. I'm
mm,
I'm testing there. And also in their technical answers, you can see some personality,
mm.
knowing that nerves are probably a part of it.
And then how would I train for it in my organization?
Well, quite frankly, if I didn't see that level of EQ, I'd be really challenging whether they come in or not,
Mm,
particularly at a leadership level. But if they came in anyway, that might be a bit harsh on my on my part. Maybe it's my experience. Um, but if I don't think you can train for it, but I think you can scaffold it.
mm.
Yeah, yeah. You
How
can. You
would you
can.
scaffold it?
I lead by example.
Mm,
Lead by example. But let's
mm,
go for coffee and talk about and then show the culture. The culture is that you take your people out for coffees and talk to them, and then that's okay. We all encourage that. It's not a time waster. It's a community builder. It's um, make it have some morning teas where you're learning people's names and their pets, and everyone has a dog these days after COVID or a cat. So
true. Very true. Very true.
lead by example.
Mm.
Demonstrate.
So you talk about accountability. What's the difference between holding people accountable that strengthens them versus accountability that shuts them down?
Oh, gosh, that's a toughie. I'm going to say collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm talking to someone and they go, what are your goals? What are your goals for the week? What are your goals for the month? What are your goals for the year? And you co-design, you have a conversation and you co-design, is that achievable? How are you going to do it? Then I can hold them accountable for that because
Mm,
they've promised and we've had a discussion. And your weekly, monthly, 6 monthly check-ins
mm,
holding them accountable to their promise, to
mm,
our agreed goal. And if they say, look, we were wrong, I'm off track, we need to change, then that's okay. You carry on having the conversation. But if I, as a leader, go, I want this, 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 and this, and you don't gain buy-in and you don't have a conversation, then holding them accountable to that is a bit unfair and it's possibly going to shut them down.
mm.
Some people might rise to the challenge. I might be good at setting accountabilities, but I am a big believer in that co-design, that buy-in, working together, partnering for an outcome. Because at the end of the day, we're all there for the organisation and for the people the organisation serves.
I want to go back to the toxic leadership conversation because you are particularly vocal about the impact toxic leadership has on women,
Mm,
women's careers, and
mm,
in particular, people from marginalised backgrounds who simply can't walk away.
mm.
Why do you think that the reality is so uncomfortable for organisations to face?
I think it comes down to the culture. It's scary to face it, scary to say, to suddenly admit that leader has had this impact on all these people. How do we as an organisation admit we've done the wrong thing and that leader's got to go? Very brave organisation that shoots the leaders, gets rid of the leaders and do it. So I think it's just difficult for them to go, we've had a 40% turnover and they're all females that have left.
Mm,
I mean, hopefully the psychological safety laws, the new legislation, will help organisations gather data, analyse data, and act on data to start understanding these patterns. So, I mean, that's a long-winded answer. I probably haven't answered it well, but I think one, organisations aren't courageous enough Two, I don't think they gather the data. I don't think they look for it and look for the patterns.
Mm.
And I don't know that they want to.
I think they're very critical points because, as you say, it's really hard to move on a leader for a whole bunch of reasons. But then if you're not collecting the data, or if you are getting the data because they've had 40% of your female staff leave and you choose to ignore it because it's the easiest thing to do, it is going to have an impact on the culture of the organisation. And it becomes this cycle, doesn't it,
It's
really?
self-feeding. I was just
Yeah.
going to say that it's self-feeding then. That's why it's very brave for a new leader to come in and then go, oh no, I've got to do something here. Yeah.
What happens, or, from what you've seen, what actually, talking about the people from marginalised backgrounds who quite often don't have a choice to simply walk away because it's not as easy for them to get another role, and, they're in that job because they might need to get a level of experience before they can walk away and get another job. What happens to them when they stay in unsafe places?
I can tell you from my experience, I was a single mum. I had my daughter when I was 20. So I put myself through university and then went into the workplace. And my daughter was 6 when I went into the workplace. I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave my organisation. And because I had to pay the rent, I had to clothe, feed, I had to look after my daughter. So in those early days, like I said, didn't really realise it was toxic, but I knew I wasn't happy. I thought, gosh, if this is what working life is like, I want to go back to university forever. That sort of thinking. I stayed because one, I needed the income, and two, it was, well, if I leave this place now, where do I go to? I haven't got enough on my CV. I haven't got enough experience to go somewhere else. I'm very lucky to be here. And that's a big mentality of mine. But I'm very lucky. They've hired me. They must trust me. I'm very lucky to be here. And I was the only female in the building at that stage. I'm very lucky to be here. It's that mindset, isn't it? That, single parent female, how privileged am I that they hired me?
Can't rock the boat because I can't afford to be. But how did it affect your performance?
I'm an overachiever. I learned to be an overachiever very, very young because I thought overachieving would save me. That's how I learned that as a child. If I overachieved, my dad wouldn't use me as a scapegoat. What I should have learned as a child, when I overachieved, the shining light was me, not my dad, and I was slapped back down into place. I should have learned that as a child because what I did at work was I overachieved. And what did the bosses do, particularly the male bosses? Slap me back down into place. Yeah, I got told off for asking for more work because I'd got through my work when I was very young. When I just got into the workplace, I'd done my work in 3 days. And, I've said, oh, you need to give me more. And I was quite frankly given us talking to. Yeah, and it's been more than once I've been told you're showing up other people. Going. And then one day I went to work for an American company and they said, how can we help you do this faster? And I said, give me 2 computers so I can be doing 2 things at once. Next day there was 2 computers there. And I thought, that was another learning moment.
Yeah, different environment again.
But it made me an overperformer. And that's not necessarily a good thing.
No.
It's not a good thing.
No.
Not when you drive yourself because you think that's your protection. Everyone's got to love me. No one's going to bully me or victimize me if I'm really good at my job. Yeah.
I think there's a part of leadership that we perhaps don't talk about enough, which is that when, you take on a leadership role, you actually hold power over the people who work in your team or in your organization about their financial security, about their well-being and about their sense of safety. And they're 3 really critical things that we hold the balance of power on.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very, very true. And I say it several times in my book, and I will say it for the rest of my career. People should be allowed and to be safe to bring their whole selves to work. So they shouldn't feel like you hold power. They should feel like they're coming to work, not as a home, not as a family. It's definitely different, but it's a trust. Let's go back to trust. People should be able to come to work trusting that they can bring their whole selves to work. They've got financial issues, they've got personal issues, they can still come to work and be okay. Yeah. And if something does change, you have trust and respect with your leadership that they'll have a conversation. Yeah.
You've said the future of leadership isn't harder, it's braver, kinder, and more accountable, and certainly more self-aware.
Mm.
I'm interested to know from your experience and your opinion, what does bravery in leadership actually look like?
Vulnerability. I think it's vulnerability and trust. So my style of leadership when I run a team is you're all the experts. You're the experts in your field. I'm your manager or your leader, and I'm going to trust you to be you, and you do the work. You come to me and tell me what you need. Tell me if it's not going right, and I've got your back. We'll do it. We'll do it together. And I think for a lot of leaders, that you need to be very brave to do that, because there is an expectation in leadership that you're the expert, that you know everything. And if you've got a large team, you can't know everything, and you want your people to be the experts. That's why they're there.
You want
Your
them to
job
be.
is to see the umbrella. How
Yeah.
that one fix that one.
Yeah.
Not be able to dive in and do the accounts. For a lot of leaders that I've come across, that's a very brave. They have to be very brave to admit, I don't know, I'm going to have to ask my people and I'll come back to you.
As we work towards 2030, which isn't that far away, which is a scary thought in itself, what leadership behaviours do you hope we will leave behind as we get closer to 2030?
I hope that controlling behaviours and micromanagement's left behind and trust comes up. I mean, I start in my book by talking about the Industrial Revolution because that's my background. I'm from Manchester. You know, I wasn't there in the Industrial Revolution. I'm not that old, but I'm from Manchester. But you look, that's where factories started. Cog in the wheel. You know, do this and you do this and you do this, and you know, you were scared if you know those people were scared to rock the boat. They just went to work and they did. There were robots. I don't believe we've moved on from that in a lot of ways. We may be office work, more office based now. We may work from home a lot, but there's still a lot of that behaviour of you come to work at this time, you do your job, you're a cog in the wheel, you go home. It's still that almost manufacturing mindset, even in office space. That's where I think it needs to change. We're evolving as humans. We're evolving as workplaces. Look what COVID did to us. We now have more trust to work from home, and it's worked so well for a lot of people. And it was really hard for a lot of leaders to start
let
letting
go.
go of control, letting go and trusting. But I think it serves all of us. I think it serves the leader themselves if they can let go of the need to let go, you know, to hold on. If they can let go of the need to hold on, it's very freeing, and it's very freeing for your team to know I'm safe, I'm trusted, I can do my job. And I'd love us to work towards that sort of kindness. It's kind, isn't it? What I'm describing is kindness. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Jane, we've come to a point in our podcast which we call the Spotlight Shuffle. I've got, if you were sitting in front of me, you would have a fishbowl to pick the numbers out of, but we're doing this digitally. So I've got 20 questions. You've got about 4 numbers that you can pick. So pick a number and I will ask a question against it.
16.
What's a compliment or piece of feedback that was given to you that you've never forgotten?
This is a strange one, but I'm going to share it with you. The first time that the example I gave where my manager came back and I collapsed, I realised I was being bullied and I wasn't safe. I had some therapy. As part of the therapy, I went to see a psychiatrist. I had one session with a psychiatrist, and I walked in and sat down and talking to him what was happened. And he said to me, and I have shared this advice with many people, he said to me, I'm going to give you one piece of advice, one thing for you to remember. And this is what I remember. Women who walk in here because they've been in your situation aren't weak. They are good. They walk in here because they're strong and they've challenged the system. So just remember that you're strong and you've challenged. There is nothing wrong with you. So go back out there. And I remember that to this day. The fact that he said to me, you were bullied because you're good and because you're strong, not the other way around, is something that changed my thinking and has stuck with me, and something I pass on regularly. It's because you're good at your job and because you're strong that they're coming at you. Yeah.
And something I guess I want to pick up around this particular point as well is when you know, whether you're a male or female, when you're in that environment and you are in a toxic, being bullied, or it's a very toxic environment, you quite often choose to leave as opposed to having the discussion around what needs to change and why that person is making you feel that way. And there's probably a whole bunch of other people who feel the same way that you do, but no one's saying anything.
Yeah.
You just choose to leave, right? And so organizations lose good talent, and that behavior becomes more and more toxic because they get to stay, which means that they, in their mind, feel that they're right. And good people leave. So I'm assuming that's what happened in your environment. When you did collapse, you chose to leave.
I chose to leave. Yeah, I've done that a couple of times, chose to leave eventually. But I think you're right. I think it's those people that are also toxic or also show sycophantic behavior to the toxicity that manage to stay. And so the culture is just self-feeding. And the good people go, oh no, I'm out of here.
All right. Now the next number.
Oh, 7.
What's the hardest part of leadership no one talks about enough?
It's lonely. It can be very lonely. And that struck me quite quickly, not at middle management, because you've got up, down and across. But the more you go up, the less people you have to talk to, the more confidences you have to hold. Often the more daggers are coming at you. It's lonely, and no one prepared me for that.
Interesting is that a coach of mine once said to me, you know, when you take on that leadership position, you can never whinge down.
Yes.
But whinging up, which is usually to your board or to the chair of your board, whinging up is filled with a whole heap of, you know, connotations that you probably don't want to face either. So you're right. In that way, it can be very, very lonely. You know, where do you go? You just have to build a good tribe around you, don't you?
You do. And I think sometimes you have to build a tribe outside of and get a good mentor and build a tribe outside. But again, with your mentor, you don't often want to go let's have too many wines and start the bad language. You know, your girlfriends are for that. Yeah. So picking up on something, if you don't mind, I noticed a behavior crept up in me that I didn't like. And that was, like you said, you can't winch down. And I was in a place where I was a leadership position and I was being bullied. And I noticed my behavior changed downwards, and I started to say things I shouldn't have said. And I did stop. I did thought, right, that's the time to call it. When you can no longer filter between here and here, because that's part of your leadership job. You know, you're the umbrella that catches everything, so it doesn't go down. And my umbrella got holes in it, and it started coming through. And I thought, that's not good. This is not good for anybody. It's not good for me. It's not good for them. I'm now doing the opposite to what I've always wanted to do as a leader. And that I called it. You have to call it.
You have to call it. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great self-awareness, actually, just to end round that conversation off. It's great self-awareness, because quite often when you get caught up in that, you know, cycle, it's really hard to have a look in the mirror at yourself and say, you know, what elements of this do I control and what can I change?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. True. And where am I now perpetuating the situation?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Another number?
3.
What's the most exciting possibility you see in the future of leadership or work?
Well, I'm very excited by AI. I know people seem to have a love-hate relationship with AI, and there's a lot of fear around it taking people's jobs and etc. What excites me about AI is what I mentioned earlier about we've come from the Industrial Revolution where we're all robots and command and control and things need to change. AI is going to be doing a lot of that transactional work, and it allows humans to be human. That's my hope. In a leadership position, you will have more ability to be human, and your people will have more ability to be human. And all that day-to-day transactional paperwork shuffling, form filling will be done by AI. And you'll be able to pick up the phones and talk to people.
More connections.
More connections and relationships. That's the word I'm looking for, connection. AI will allow us to have more connections, and I'm hoping that that's at all levels, and it will, the leadership, people in leadership will build those connections.
All right, your last number, Jane.
Oh, did I say 17 before? Can I have 17?
No, but you can have 17. What's one decision you're proud of, even if it wasn't popular?
To write my book. Yeah.
Why wasn't it popular? Or are you proud of it? Which part of that?
Both. I waited till my dad died to write it. I wanted to write it. I've dabbled at writing it for a while, And it was really when my dad died, I thought,
You wanted to talk about your experiences growing up, I
I want to
assume.
talk
Is that
about my
why?
experience growing up. And it was not as disrespectful because he was no longer with us. But then when I went into the talking about the workplaces, I think there was some fear out there from people that I was going to spill the beans.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never had any intention of doing that. This is not about, excuse me, my book's not about punishment. It's not about retribution or getting my own back. It's about telling my story and helping people understand the situation they're in and how it can be different. But I think there was some fear there from some people, and I certainly felt some retribution while in the process of writing it. Yeah.
I think when you are in that position, if you've been bullied or you're working in a toxic environment, it's actually not easy to talk about because invariably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but invariably you feel like it's your response. Even though you're the victim, you take on the responsibility of the environment and you always look at what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely part of being bullied and being the victim is, well, what am I doing wrong? What can I do differently? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I'm stirring the pot. Maybe I'm doing it on purpose. That's all part of the tiredness and the fatigue that builds up because you're doing it to yourself. That's lack of psychological safety.
Yeah. And the other part is if you do bring it out and shine a light on it, usually it's your name that's out in the open, which then impacts any future career potential and sometimes, but not all the time, whereas the perpetrator quite often doesn't get mentioned at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's very brave to write a book and start talking about these topics. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on writing the book and thank you for sharing your journey and your experiences with us. I do appreciate that. If people want to connect with you, Jane, what's the best way that they can do that?
They can go to my website, janephipsauthor.com. My search engine optimization is not good, so type it in.
Or LinkedIn, I'm assuming they can connect with you on LinkedIn.
Or LinkedIn, yeah. But all the connections are on my website, but they can certainly look me up on LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks for being on part of Future Fit Leadership.
Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely. It was lovely to chat to you.
If you like what you've heard, please share, rate and review this podcast. And don't forget to share it with anyone who might benefit from hearing it. The producer of Future Fit Leadership is Maritza Barone from Guide Your Light Network. If you would like to reach out to me, please DM me on any of my social media platforms. I'm available for speaking at conferences or consulting to your business. Future Fit is created in partnership with Future Leadership, a capability ecosystem for boards and executives. If you'd like to join the community and receive a free takeaway each week, sign up to the Future Exchange app in my show notes. Thank you for having me in your space.
This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.